Hello everyone, welcome to 100 Days 100 DBA Tool Script series. In the first session, we talked about the series outline like roadmap and all. So this is the first session of DBA Tools introduction and myself Ravi Shekhar, and without wasting any time, directly jump into the session. Okay. So the first session agenda is, first we need to understand what is DBA tools, why DBAs need DBA tools, and where do we install these DBA tools, and OS and SQL Server compatibility, and the prerequisites before installing this DBA tool modules, and then how to install DBA tools and validate the installation. After the installation, we have to validate whether all the modules, all the commandlets are loaded or not. And then common installation problems we'll see in this session. So first, what is DBA tools? So as you know, DBA tools is a PowerShell module for SQL Server administration, dedicatedly for SQL Server administration, and it built by DBAs for DBAs, and DBA tool modules having more than 700 plus commands. Till today, we have 713 commands for our day-to-day activities, and these commands are used for automation, consistency, and speed. So why we need to learn these DBA tools, why we need to understand these DBA tools is, so far many DBAs are doing their daily day-to-day activities manually, but manual SQL tasks are slow, and sometimes we may do mistakes, but if we automate properly, systems will not do mistakes. Okay, but make sure we have to give the right instructions, right? And also if you are doing manual work for across your multiple servers, if you are a senior DBA or mid-level DBA, it's not a good practice, right? So this DBA tools is automates all your day-to-day operations. Here one script can manage hundreds of SQL Server instances. You no need to connect each and every SQL Server instance, do the manual work. From single machine, you can connect to more than hundreds of servers, and you can run the script across your SQL Server estate. So where do we install these DBA tools? Basically, we can install our DBA tools on your local machine or VDI, from where you are able to connect to the remote SQL Server instances. But the problem here is whoever is using VDI, they may not have sufficient permissions to install DBA tools modules in PowerShell. Due to security policies, usually they will not allow. But if you have the permissions, then if you can install DBA modules in your VDI. But make sure you should have access to all your SQL Server instances. You can able to connect all the SQL Server instances from this VDI using SSMS. Then only you need to install on your VDI. Otherwise, you need to install on your jump server or any development server or any sandbox server. And if you are preparing these DBA tools, if you want to learn, if you want to develop some automation scripts, then you can install on your local machine as well, your personal laptop. But it is not recommended for production SQL servers, and wherever the SQL server is installed, it is not at all recommended. You can install this in a dedicated machine from where you can able to access all the SQL servers over the network. So the OS and SQL Server compatibility is, so minimum, whether it is a Windows 7 or Windows 8, Windows 10 or Windows 11 or Windows Server 2008 or 12 or 2016, 2019 or 2022, make sure minimum PowerShell version is 3.1 or later. So obviously if we are most of the organizations are using latest Windows, obviously they are having 5.1, this is fine. So minimum 3.1 version is needed. If you are having 3.1, then all the DBA tool commands, 700 plus commands, are fully supported in your Windows client operating system or server operating systems. For example, if you are using Linux, Intel image or ARM64 image, out of 700 commands, you can use only up to 75% of the total commands. There are certain limitations in Linux, so that's why you can use 75% of commands from the DBA tools. If you are using Mac OS, you can install DBA tools, but make sure it should be either Intel or M1 chip machine. Then only you can able to install. Even if you install on your Mac OS, you can use 75% commands. Not all, only here also you can use 75% commands will support for Mac OS systems. Coming to the SQL Server, make sure the minimum SQL Server version should be SQL Server 2012 or later version. Any addition is fine, but version should be minimum SQL Server 2012 or later version is fine. For example, if your SQL Server instances are hosted on Azure, AWS or GCP VMs, in that VMs also the minimum SQL Server version is 2012 or later version. This DBA tools will support. And for Azure SQL databases also you can use DBA tool commands, but very limited, 30 to 40% you can use it to access the Azure SQL databases. Likewise, for Azure SQL managed instances, we can use 50% of the commandlets which are currently available in the DBA tools. Not all, you can use 300 to 350 commands, you can use it for Azure SQL managed instance. Next one is prerequisites before installing the DBA tools. As I mentioned earlier, minimum PowerShell version is 3.1 or later version or 5.1. So obviously most of the systems are up to date, you will be having a 5.1, but you need to check what is the PowerShell version, and then we need to enable the TLS setting. So in old system there are some security blockings, but nowadays most of the systems are enabled with TLS 1.2, and also you should have a internet access to the PowerShell gallery to install the DBA tool modules. Offline also we can install. I will record a separate session how to install DBA tools offline. And also you need to run the PowerShell as a administrator mode, which means either ISE or normal command mode. Make sure you need to open with admin privileges, and at least you should have very basic knowledge how to install the module. That is fine. Okay. Along with this, we also need additional requirements, which means, for example, if you want to connect to the servers which are hosted on a different network, if you want to access the SQL Server instance in a different machine, so make sure wherever you install the DBA tools, from that machine you can able to connect to the other server by using SQL port number. Make sure you should able to access that port, whether it is a default port or a custom port. Here you can able to access the port from the machine where you install the DBA tools. Along with this, either 5985 or 5986 WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation Programs. Okay, so any of the port needs to be enabled for remote management access, which means if you are connecting to another servers, okay, remotely, make sure either 5985 or 5986, any port can be opened. Along with this, SQL WMI port 135 to avoid any RPC, remote procedure call issues, we need to enable 135 port also. And apart from these, we also need to enable 445 SMB. Why? Because for example, if you want to store the backups in a shared location, if you want to move the location from one server to another server, make sure this SMB port 445 needs to be enabled for file sharing. Here the best tip for DBATools is just inform to your firewall team or network team to create a separate firewall for DBATool management. But these are all mandatory. PowerShell 3.1 or 5.1 enable TLS, internet access, PowerShell run as administrator, and at least basic knowledge of PowerShell. Along with this, if you want to access the remote SQL servers, you need to enable the port number 1433 or any custom port number, and also 5985 or 5986 for remote management access, and 135 is for SQL WMI, and 445 is for the file sharing backups. So before installing, we need to verify few more things. Like first is PowerShell version. Okay. So how do we verify the PowerShell version? So if you want to verify the PowerShell version, okay. So what you can do is ps version table dot ps version. So if you execute this one, you will get the major and minor and build and revision. So here major dot minor, which means it's a 5.1. You can also run like this ps version table. It will also give the complete information which version currently it is installed. So here we have 5.1, then it is perfectly suitable, right? The next one is in the old Windows versions, TLS 1.2 will be disabled by default to avoid security issues. But if you want to enable the TLS 1.2, you can use this command net service point manager security protocol. This one, if you enable this one, automatically TLS 1.2 will be enabled. Okay, but this is for only for that particular session. But if you want to permanently enable the TLS 1.2, then you need to run this attached script. I will attach this in the resources section. Okay, and also whatever the modules which you are installing, make sure there should be a trust between PowerShell gallery and the modules. Okay, for example, if you buy a phone and whenever you are taking a photo, then it will ask permission to store or to access the photos, which means you are granting some permission. You are building the trust between your photos and your mobile, right? So likewise, here also we need to establish a trust between the PowerShell gallery and the modules for smooth automated installation. Okay, so how we can see this is, so we need to maintain the trust, right? So for this one, what we need to do is, if you are installing for the first time, what you need to do is set ps repository name ps gallery. This is the repo name, and you are storing all the modules in ps gallery, and installation policy is trusted, which means, so whatever you are downloading, whatever you are installing, make sure it should be trusted. Okay, and whenever you execute this command, if you get any prompt trust the PowerShell gallery, then type yes. So if you don't want, then type hit enter, and then if you don't want, then if you can type no, and if you hit enter, it will abandon the process, cancel the session. But if you want to if you want to run any additional scripts, sometimes we need to enable this execution policy, because these are the third party scripts, right? Make sure it should be signed perfectly, then only it will allow to run the scripts. And here we have used set execution policy. Execution policy is remote signed. Scope we have mentioned as current user, which means, so wherever you are using this set execution policy, scope current user means, so you are bypassing the policies for this particular user. You are bypassing the policies for this particular user. But as DBA tools, every DBA needs to access, right? So that's why instead of current user, you need to mention as a all users. Then whoever is having the access to the server, everyone can able to run the PowerShell scripts. Okay. Set execution policy. Execution policy name is remote signed and scope is current user. Automatically the execution policy will be bypassed and you can able to run the third party scripts. Why we need to use this all users? To avoid the user profile dependency. For example, in my team I am having 5 members. Okay. For example, I installed with current user. Okay. Then I can only able to run the DBA modules. The other person can't able to run. If I use all users for the scope for the same, then everyone can able to, whoever is connected to the server, everyone can able to access the DBA tool modules. And this is the best practice for production servers. And next one is validate the installation. So before going to the validating the installation, let's install the PowerShell modules. Okay. So how do we install? We'll see here. So what I'll do is, I have already opened this PowerShell as an administrator mode. You can type install simple command. So simple language commands. These are very human readable and very English like commands. You are installing the module. Install -module. Which module you are installing? DBATools. Just hit enter. So it will automatically connect and download all the modules. It will take couple of minutes. It will download all the required modules. So it is giving a prompt stating that untrusted repository, which means you are not given any trust. So what you need to do is, you need to give a trust between repository, between the PowerShell gallery. So you are installing the modules from untrusted repository. If you trust this repository, change its installation policy value by running the set ps repository command. Okay. Or else you can type yes or yes to all. If you want to accept all, then what you can do is just type a. You are accepting all. Okay. So it will establish the trust connection between untrusted repository to your PowerShell gallery, and then download all the modules from untrusted repository to PowerShell gallery. So it will take very couple of minutes. Okay. And then it will, so if you can see here, it is downloading and installing the packages. Okay. So it will take couple of minutes. Once it is completed, we can see the normal command prompt. Let's wait for couple more minutes. So it is installed. Now we'll see whether installation is successful or not. We need to verify whether all the modules are installed correctly or not. How do we verify? So what you need to do is get command -module. Here what you need to do is, we have installed the DBATools, right? Type DBATools. So if it is returning the values, if it is listing the values, if it is returning all the commands, which means DBATools are perfectly installed. Now you can see all the commandlets, functions and all you can able to see, right? So without any warning, without any error message, you can able to see all the commands, which means DBA tools installation is perfectly installed. This is how we need to validate. So along with this, what we need to do is we need to check the list available. Even if you can pass list available or not, that is fine. But what we can do is measure the object, which means count how many commandlets, how many functions are downloaded. So we need to verify. Okay. So before running the measure count, let's see list available. Okay. So here get module DBA tools list. Here use hyphen list available. So here you can see the 2.7.20 version is installed. So it is having all the objects. Now what we'll do is we'll count the modules. How many commands are downloaded, are imported. We'll see the count, how many commandlets we are having. So what you can do is db get command module. What you can do is here measure object. So which means it is counting, measuring, it is summing all the commands. So if you run it, you can see the count is 713. So we are having, so total 713 commandlets. Okay, not only commandlets, the total functions, commandlets, the total number is 713 commands we are having it. This is how we need to validate whether the installation is successful or not. Why we need to verify? Why we need to verify? To avoid any issues going forward, we need to verify whether the installation is successful or not. So for example, if you are installed a SQL Server, if you get an error, then what you will do? You will verify the log, right? If it is installed correct, still you can see the summary file from the setup bootstrap, and you can see at what time it is stopped, at what time it is started, and what features are installed. You can able to see the summary, right? Likewise, once you install the DBA tools, you have to verify whether it is installed or not. If it is installed, do we have the updated count or not? We have to verify. Okay, so this validation will prevent the runtime failures whenever you are running any commands. So if all the commandlets are available, then it will avoid all the runtime failures. So why installation validation? Why we have to verify the validation? Because whenever we run the commands, whether it is a backup, restore or anything, so to avoid backup failures, we have to verify the installation validation. And whenever we are performing any migration, to avoid migration issues, we have to verify the count. And to perform the reliable automation, we have to verify the count, whether all the commands, all the commandlets, all the functions are imported or not. And it saves, if we have verified all these commands are imported or not, it saves our troubleshooting time as well, right? And the overall summary of this session is DBA tools installation is the first critical step, okay, because it has certain limitations and certain recommendations, certain prerequisites, right? So DBA tools installation is the first critical step, because many companies won't accept this. These are the third party modules, and that too PowerShell is very danger. Okay, I mean, if you misuse it is danger. If you properly build the script, then it is fine. So most of the companies will not allow, but if any company is using, if any organization using PowerShell, then it's a good practice. Okay, and if we install DBA tools clean, then we can perform the stable automation without having any issues. And make sure once you install, never skip the validation. Don't skip the validation. Okay, and these strong foundations, this is the foundation level, right? Foundation level series. This will enables for you to learn advanced DB automation. Okay, hope you understand this session, and we'll see in the next session. Meanwhile, go through the video and set up your laptop or set up your system and install the DBA modules and verify and perform the validation, and then we'll see. Okay, so we'll meet in the next session. Thank you.